Hey, afternoon or nice and early morning for me. I've been trying to get this side camera on like Ethernet streaming for about 2 hours. I finally figured it out, and then realised the stream quality is way worse than HDMI. So I should have both on. So this is HDMI, and then this. There you go. That's over the network. So lag-wise, like literally almost identical. But going between the 2 feet is like, look at the hand. That's HDMI. That's NDI. So it's like, obviously, NDI is going over the network, so there has to be some limitation to it. It's good, like lag-free, but I'll just leave both enabled for now, and then if we see any glitching on this screen, I'll flip between HDMI and NDI and see if it's like the PCIe on the computer or the camera itself, so at least I'll be able to figure out if we get issues, whether it's the camera, the HDMI, or the network port then at least. And I should be able to do the sub-only stream then later on today, because it failed yesterday thanks to this camera just deciding for the first time ever to glitch on the only time I've planned a stream at a set time. So the only one I've scheduled in for a set time, and the camera failed, and it's literally never failed before. So hopefully that won't happen tonight. I just want to quickly program, or I might do a little bit of work on the Sega Saturn first. I've got to do a region-free BIOS, I've got to do an FRAM mod, and I've got to do a Fenrir IDE, but the main thing I want to show off is actually the RePCB 1 ASICs are now delivered in a nice giant bag, so it feels like you've got a, you know, as an adult it looks like you've got a giant bag, and it makes you feel a bit more like a child instead of a box. So we've got this giant bag with the ASIC in. I want to just build a few of them up, but I'm just going to quickly do a bit of work on this Saturn first, because it's obviously on my desk from yesterday. And to be honest, I think it's the first time I'm programming a BIOS for the VA0, so I'll see if it even works, because I know the SOP BIOSes that we sell, they're byte swapped, and I don't think the Sega Saturn VA1s or VA0s are byte swapped. I think they are just normal order bits. So I'll program this not byte swapped as worldwide BIOS, and I don't even know. I think this BIOS works, the 27C400, but like I say, I can't remember off the top of my head even doing one of these, so I will see if this works first. I think I need an adapter for this one as well, of course I do. So I've got the 48, okay, so that can't do with this programmer to start with. The other one's, again, not here. Yep, the other one isn't here, so I'll actually have to program the BIOS later, but we'll still fit the socket and do the FRAM, I think. So there goes that idea. So you have to have the more expensive programmer to do those chips. I've got them, but not on me. Actually put this back. This is a Sega Saturn, so much older than a PS4. This is a maxed out one, so this is having 1 terabyte hard drive with all games. It's having a region-free BIOS, an FRAM mod. I'm not going to do this all on stream at the minute. I am going to do a Game Gear RePCB. We've had the new Game Gears in, but for the minute, I'm going to just do a little bit of work. I'm going to put a socket on this, and then I'll probably jump on the Game Gear after I've put a socket on this, because that's what I really want to show off. Yeah, the sub-streams, I've put in the Elite members on Discord, I've put a vote on. Obviously we've got to see where most subs are and where they fit in, but what I'll probably do is for the sub-only streams. I'll probably do some early morning like this for me, and others late afternoon, like 4 PM. And then at least all the subs, because we've got subs all around the world. We've got them obviously US, Australia, obviously UK, and they're all completely different time zones. So I'll probably just do the sub-only streams at different times anyway, so everybody can kind of join in. And then you've got the VODs anyway after, so you can watch them back. Right, so you might see as well, I've now got this desolder gun back out, the thing I always say I never use. Yeah, welcome in. Yeah, doing good. Thank you very much. I always complain that these rip traces, so normally you'll see me using hot air station and a desolder pump. So I'll normally go over like pins with the hot air, obviously not this nozzle, and then I'll desolder pump all the holes out. And tons of people always tell me I need to use a desolder gun, and then I obviously get the desolder gun out and say I've got one and the shit. But I decided to try and figure out why I've got a problem with them and nobody else seems to. And I figured out, and the problem I had is, I always say, it rips the traces. So if we looked at, say, the traces on this board, where is the chip I'm going to do? So these pins here, say you've got these little tiny traces coming off, like here. What I found with the desolder gun is when you put them on, no matter how delicate you are, and then you desolder pump, the tip of this, and I've got to be careful because it is turned on, the tip of this would rip through them fine traces. But I've found out the only reason it does that is because it comes with a stock tip, and I didn't even know you could change these. And the size of this tip massively matters. So that being so wide, when it goes over, and you bear in mind this is like a boiling hot tip, that goes through, and the trace, obviously that's outside of the annular ring, gets caught by this tip and rips through. So the problem all along I've had with the guns is actually it's the tip being too big. So I've now got a tip that's actually too small on, that just about fits over, but to prove the point that will it actually rip traces or not if the tip size is right. And it basically works perfect so far. I've only used it twice, but works really good if you've got the right size that doesn't go over the traces. So I'm actually going to try and use this desolder gun to do all these pins basically. And I'll probably still use flux to help with it, but we'll try and take this entire BIOS off now with the desolder gun, which obviously the benefit is it's much quicker than hot air, and well, that's really the only benefit. It's quicker than hot air. I guess there's also places where hot air is difficult to do based on things around, but let's just give this a go. Yeah, it is turned on, isn't it? Yep, so this one should, yep, that's on. Let's get the fan going then. This one should go over, and the idea is you go over the pin, and this will just about fit over the pins because, like I say, it's technically too small. Wait for like 2 or 3 seconds, and then desolder pump, and you see how it's done it perfect. That's what we expect. So next one, over, wait 2 seconds, perfectly clear. So other than the ridiculously annoying sound of a desolder gun, that works perfect. So not as exciting to watch as a desolder pump with hot air and a rubber tip on, but gets the job done. So let's see if you get any better angle from here. Thing is, I'm left-handed and the camera's on the left. Do I want to hear a joke? Maybe. Is it going to be something to do with the size of the tip? Thanks for subbing, guy. And if you want to become a member at some point, you can watch the sub-only streams we're about to start doing as well. Now this one's a thick ground plane, so whenever you see traces that are quite thick, so like see this one, it's got the big ground plane here. It might not be the ground, but it's got a thick plane, so I left that one on a little bit longer before I desolder pumped it. But this does fit over the pins, but I found on the other one I did the other day is it barely fit over. So you want to, this is a 0.6mm tip, I think a 0.8mm is probably more useful for most things. It's just so annoying, the sound is the only thing. And to be honest, it's probably not that much quicker than my hot air, because it takes a bit of time to actually get the nozzle over, like to actually get it to go over the pins. So other than the initial warm up with the hot air, probably doesn't actually save much time, but this will probably, yeah, that one failed a little bit. This will probably be a little bit safer on, you know, places where hot air might stress the board out. But we'll have to see if I want to stick with this, just because that noise is annoying as hell. This is an early morning stream. I've been up since about 3 today, but I've been spending a few hours trying to get this side camera that you're looking at working over the network called NDI, because basically yesterday I was meant to be doing a sub-only stream, and for the first time since I've been streaming, this camera decided to fail, like the, you know, not this overhead one, the side one. So I figured it might be the HDMI or the capture PCIe capture card inside this PC that might be the problem. So I've purchased a license of like £120 or whatever it was to enable me to use NDI, which is video over Ethernet for the most part. It does more than that, but that's one of the reasons. So I purchased that, set up all the camera, and now we have a simultaneous HDMI. So this is HDMI, and then if I show this is actually over the network. So see the quality difference, and I don't know whether the frame rate's different. No, so frame rate's different, but that's over the network, that's NDI, and that's HDMI. So you can actually see the wood has more colour range as well. So this has gone oversaturated on the network, but look at the detail on here, for example, like on these chips. So this is HDMI, this is network NDI. So they're both good and they both seem like exactly the same lag, which is quite impressive. One's hardwired as HDMI, the other one's going through my network, and it's exactly the same lag. So I've got both enabled. So if we start seeing glitches on this camera again, I can toggle between the two modes, and I'll know if it's anything related to my capture, the PCIe capture on the computer, or whether it's network related. Located, I'm in Stoke in the UK. Yeah, I like this gun, I just don't know whether I can put up with the sound. That is quite annoying. Do they do a silent desolder gun? Or one that makes a better sound? It sounds like when the missus is complaining at you. It's not a sound I want to hear. Right, I think that's all the pins. Can't make my mind up whether them end ones are solder pads or not. Right, so when this is all done, you sometimes find that, as we do in this case, some of them aren't quite fully clear. So you'll find that some will be not free, so you can see some are still sticking. So yeah, I think I'll probably, even though I've got the desolder gun, I'm probably still going to end up using hot air, and I might even use, I don't know, might use a hot air to get it off the normal way I would, because you don't want to be doing this and then messing around finding holes that haven't quite worked. This is kind of the point of why I do it the way I do it, which is to fully remove the chip first and then desolder pump the holes. So maybe I'll use that to desolder pump holes after, but you can see it's still not loose. So although the gun works now and it doesn't rip traces, and maybe I'll use it for, you know, desolder pumping most of the solder out, I'll probably still end up going back to my hot air. So let's get the hot air nozzle changed back over, because this is set for a Game Gear VDP. That's that nozzle out of the way, man. And I don't really have a giant, I'm going to leave the nozzle off, to be honest. I'm just going to use this for overall heating of the board. We've got plastic over here, so we just need to be careful of the bits of plastic. Actually, I can also, this is the perfect reason I brought this thing. So if I bring this down, I've got this now with a little clamp on. So let's see if we can hold an entire Sega Saturn up. Oh, and I've put the other clamps away as well. I love tidying up far too soon, so I've actually got heavier clamps. I mean, that's holding it, but I brought clamps that are much bigger than this for the reason of, you know, being able to actually hold boards up, so we can clamp them in. So yeah, that works, but not quite high enough for where I wanted it. I wanted it up here. So I guess I can just move the arm for now. But it looks like I need to keep a few of them clamps down here, a couple of sizes, which again I've packed everything away, so that's in the air now. And I can now work on it underneath. A bit high up like, but you get the idea. I can work underneath this, preheat this board, and then lift out, which obviously I don't need to do that. It's just handy. I'll wait until I've got the right size clamp for something that large, and for now I'll just do it from above and just be careful of that plastic, basically. Right, so I'll get this for pulling out. So this is a little clamp in a sense that goes over like that, and I can warm this board up. So I'll take this clamp off for a minute, because we're probably a good minute or more of preheating before this will even be realistically loose to lift off, and then we'll put the clamp over. Yeah, I think for the I think the hot air is just, I always think sometimes it's just skill level. I've got used to hot air and using it, so obviously I can remove the chips easier with hot air, and all the techniques I use rely on the hot air, so I'm obviously going to be better at doing it with hot air. But let me just move this vertical cam over again as well. 1 second, move that one over, actually a bit this way, isn't it? So move that to there. Let me just output this one. So I'm just, for those on horizontal, I'm just moving the vertical stream slightly over so it's more in line with where I'm working. There we go. Yeah, so I'm used to using the hot air in there. I'm sure the desolder pump, if I used it, I'd get more used to clearing out all the solder and things, but to be honest, that noise is the big killer for me. That's just such an annoying noise, and I rarely have problems with hot airing chips off. Like, this will obviously put a bit more stress on the board because you're thermal hot airing everywhere, but I've never really damaged anything. The only thing I've ever damaged with hot air is the Game Gear VDP that we've discovered recently. Putting too much heat on the VDP, and obviously not necessarily too much heat because I've taken off chips for 15 years and never had problems with the heat I've used, but in this instance we have noticed a problem with the hot air. So this is only running at 330 degrees now. It's a much safer temperature, just things take a bit longer. So I'd prefer the hot air method. Just take your time, warm up the board slower and remove things, and then clearing the holes, that's sometimes a pain because you get thumb cramp from using the desolder pump, the manual one. So I've got another idea though for clearing the holes, which I should actually show you, because I've got a new tool, a micro-desolder pump, and I want to use an idea that I've thought of that might work. So I'll show you once I've done this. I'll flood one of the holes if they're all clear, which they probably will be, and we'll have a go at clearing the holes a different way. You can see how much longer this is taking. I normally use 480 degrees. I'm right down at the 330 just for that, again, the protection to make sure I don't damage any chips, considering I've now realised that the 480 does damage Game Gear VDPs. But things take a hell of a lot longer at 330 degrees, so you just have to have a bit more patience. But I think it's worth it because the whole idea is to make sure you don't damage anything, so I don't mind waiting longer, just the task takes a lot longer than I'm used to now. Yeah, cleaning the holes with hot air, desolder braid. I use pretty much all techniques, so I've tried desolder braid. I think is probably I rarely use desolder braid, to be honest. I'm much more of a hot air and silicon tip desolder pump guy. Zach uses an iron and desolder braid, and again I think he's got more skill at that than me because he does that way, so for him that way works. I think everything's probably a viable option, but it's just all practice, isn't it, basically? Practice and getting used to certain techniques. I think 330 is maybe a bit too cautious. Let's go 350. Otherwise we'll be here all week. And this is with holes that have basically got no solder as well, so you can see how delicate the 350 is. And I do have a nice preheater coming, so again, if you wanted to do things slower but more safely on heat, this is the perfect use for a preheater. Preheat the bottom of the board to 200 and then just hot air the top and it'll come out way quicker. So that'd be the better technique. Yeah, and to be honest, I'm just going to go back to my usual 480 for now. I can't even count how many of these I've done. Well, let's do 410. I know for a fact Saturns don't die doing this because, the only thing I've ever known hot air at 480 to kill is the Game Gear VDP. There's nothing else that's ever been damaged doing this, so I'm just going to go straight to my 480. And we'll find this should come out in no time now. Any recommendation for the arm? What, the pull down arm thing that I've got the well, I was about to hold the board with. It's the same one I use for my microphone. It's AOKEO it's called. So AOKEO, if you type that into Amazon and then just put something like microphone arm, it'll come off like that. I think I even have the preheater sitting here. I could actually use the preheater. It's like the world's most stubborn socket when you're trying to do it with much less heat. I should probably also put a dedicated nozzle on so we can actually aim the hot air. This is almost like a preheat nozzle because I'm not directing the heat at the pins. So let me just chuck on a nozzle, and obviously this will take a bit longer to get used to because I'm trying new techniques and new air temperatures and stuff. So this isn't the normal air temps and way I'd do this. I'm just playing around with some new techniques at the minute to try and do things with a bit lower heat and stuff. So let's put that up there. This is why I want my little grippy arm thing. It works quite well. Back to my phone stand. So let's direct the heat now at the actual pins. And at least the board's effectively had a preheat now. With having that much air on for a good few minutes, we've nicely preheated the board, and now we've got the obviously the heat directly on the pins now. So this should definitely come out in a few seconds now. No, the chips don't always fall away. They tend to bend the legs slightly in the sockets, or they're just a bit firm. I rarely find the dip 40s will fall out. Some chips will, but not these dip. I've never known the dip ones generally fall out under hot air. They might do, but I just put the slightest bit of pressure on, so I'm not really like applying pressure with this hand. I know my hand's completely in the way of what I'm doing, but and I'll zoom out a bit. Where's my little controller? Zoom out a little bit so you can see a bit more, but I'm just resting my hand on there and just like the slightest bit of pressure just to feel when the chip is loose. Otherwise obviously you can just pull traces and things. You don't want to be doing that. Yeah, I'll go up to my full 480. We're just at 410, so I think the way I've always done it is the best, really. 480/80. I think just maybe on the Game Gear VDPs, we obviously need to be cautious, and for now I'll probably wait till I get this larger preheater for doing things like this, and I need to practice if I want to remove stuff. Like, I'm trying to use the same way and the same technique of how I do this at 480 degrees Celsius, but using much lower air temps, and it just obviously doesn't work. It's not, you haven't got enough heat to be able to go over the pins. By the time you've gone over all the pins, some solidify and others don't. So the way I do things, it works perfect for 480. Like, this is literally coming out now within 3 seconds. Whereas using lower air temps, I need a different technique. So I'm going to have to, I'd like to use the lower air temps, like say, for safety, but I'm going to definitely have to practice the techniques that will actually work for those lower air temps, because they don't work the same. So that's going to come out now, so I'm going to flip around and just do it from above now to finish off, because I think once you feel the chip starting to move, I like to warm it from above so that as the legs are coming out of the holes, they don't cool down and rip the top traces. So I always like to warm from the top, either through the whole process or at bare minimum. So you can see that's like nice and loose now. Just lifts out with no worry. And that was, I know the board's had a whole preheat, but that's going back to my 480 temperature, and it took no time at all. But anything lower than that, and it just doesn't work. That's why I've always liked using the hotter air temps, because instead of spreading the heat through the whole board like we've done there, which is probably better thermally, like it probably doesn't stress the board as much because you're soaking the board with heat. I just find that, where are we? I just find that using hot air, hotter on a localized spot, gets it off quicker. You can do your job quicker. You're not spreading heat everywhere else on the board. It's just, again, it's a technique I'm used to, I guess. Now you can see them holes are still not perfectly clear. So let me try this little new technique I'm on about for clearing these holes. Whether it's going to work or not, I'm not sure, but let me just show you the idea. We are doing a Sega Saturn at the minute. I'm just putting a socket on a Sega Saturn, and I'm just trying, well, I tried to do it with lower air temps. Didn't really work for me. I just want to try now is this new idea I've got for clearing holes, which is to use this new micro, just because I love this micro hot air gun. I've got this super small hot air gun, so if we compare that between the full size one a minute, you'll see a full size one is like this, and this is actually a small tip on the full size one. This is my little pencil one. So I've got an idea of how to possibly clear them holes, and you can probably guess what I'm going to do now. But instead of using desolder braid and things, my idea is to use this with high air temp speeds. In fact, let me turn that off a minute. And I want to see if I can just blow the solder straight through the hole. I do have a fan to, literally here, it's on to suck all the smoke away, basically. I'm going to put on a tiny nozzle, so almost as small as the hole. I don't even know how you're meant to get these out, by the way. I'm just grabbing with cutters lightly there and pulling. Probably should use a silicon grip to do that. I'm going to put this really fine tip in. Turn this back on, and I'm going to put this up to gonna set different modes. That's 400 and quite fast. Now I've already killed one of these tips being too hot, so let's see. But my idea is just go straight over the hole, right on the hole, literally right on. And can we just blow the solder through? Oh yeah, look at that. Well, it works for one. Is this a thicker ground plane? That one does not want to melt. And is that... No, I thought that might be popcorn or something. This might need preheat, but going over the holes and just blowing through seems to work. Let's try, I don't know if that's solder or a leg there. Yeah, solder. That's working very good. New way of cleaning holes. And maybe this needs even more airspeed. I just want to be careful because, like I say, I have killed one of the tips doing this. The first tip I used, I put too much hot air on. So that's now max airspeed. I just don't like that. I think this might end up like popcorn in the board. But that one seems super stubborn. So I'm not going to, well, I don't know. This is my board, so. Yeah, there's a lot of thermal mass on that little one. So it doesn't seem to want to work for thick thermal masses, but all the others literally just blows out the solder. So I think it works for like ridiculously well. It'll just not work for certain, well, I don't know actually. Is it working or is it just pushing solder? Maybe. Let's try with a thicker tip. Low melt solder I've got. I think again it's just, I'm just trying different techniques here, by the way. I can clear these holes nice and easy. This is just me playing around with new tools and new techniques a minute. Trying to find different ways to do things. So there's no issue with cleaning these holes. I can clear them in 2 seconds if I want to with hot air and a desolder pump. I do it all day long. So this is literally me just trying to find a new technique. I'm like messing with these new little tools to see if I can find other ways of doing things, mainly just for fun. I always just like to find new ways to do stuff. But yeah, my preferred technique would be full-size hot air gun, and then this desolder pump, for example. So that's the way I'd clear them. Like, let me just give you a quick example so you know what I'm talking about. The way I'd clear this hole, for example, hot air. I'd obviously, the board isn't very warm yet, so I'd warm this up, and then we just wait to see this solidify, which will probably only take a few seconds. And this is how I always clear holes. And then you can either wait to see it solidify, or you can just attempt to pump. So based on, again, I've done this quite a lot, so based on my estimation, this will be ready in about 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3. Ooh, hot. 1, 2, 3. Like that. And that's how you clear the holes, nice and easy. You know, it's not difficult. I'm just trying to do this a different way. So this is how I'd do it. I'd go down all the pads, preheat everything, and then just work your way down. So I wouldn't bounce between holes. I'd just literally go down in a line and clear them, and it's, you know, super easy. So I'm just trying a different technique, basically. That's all I'm trying to do here. There's no real need to it. I just got a new set of toys and I'm trying to use them, basically. So if I flood that one back with solder, let's try to do it with the micro pencil. Do a few. So there's a few more filled back in. Make a model of the pencil tool. It's a Yeehaw 85091. So it is this thing up here. Get my face out the way. This thing is really good, honestly. I'm loving it. Technically, the proper use for it is to like remove and add resistors and small caps and things like that. But I'm trying to use it in different ways. So, like I say, it's just more fun. I'm just trying to figure out new ways to use the tools I've got. So obviously those that don't realise I'm kind of messing around and trying to find other ways of doing things will obviously be wanting to recommend better ways of doing it. But yeah, I know how to clear this. I'm just trying to use this hot air pencil for everything it shouldn't be used for. So I've put a bigger tip on. Let's see if the same idea. Bigger tip, max airflow. This is set to 390 or 400, I think, by the looks of it. So I'm going to go over and try and just blow these clear again. Now we've got a bigger tip. And this is my motherboard, so not too worried if things happen to this one. I'm practicing on my own stuff, obviously. So you can see the solder's molten. And then, can I just touch on? Yeah. So how about you just literally touch on? Oh. Maybe. I don't know whether that stops the air or... Oh yeah, that's a good trick then. Warm it up till you see it molten, and then literally cover the hole. So wait for it to go molten, like that, and now touch. Oh yeah, spray solder everywhere doing that. I think if I practiced, I'd probably get this technique down. Yeah, that works. So I like that. See, we found a new way of desolder pumping holes. Shall we fill them all in and try and do a full run now? I think we do. So let's fill the whole holes in, and I'm going to see if I can do that as a whole run, because that is a cool technique. That I'll probably be spraying solder on the other side of my board, but let's see what happens. Well, to be honest, doing half of them is enough. We don't need to do every single hole. Right, there we go. So there's all the holes. Let's pretend this is now... Oh, we need to desolder pump this. You obviously couldn't do this with a chip in. You'd still have to remove the chip with hot air, which is the way I'd probably do it. But then say we wanted now desolder pump this. I'm just going to go over and basically wait for, I don't know, X amount of time, you get used to it, and then just tap over the hole. So Biggie's the hardest. He's definitely the heaviest thermal mass. The others definitely work nice and easy. You can't tell me that's not cool. Who now wants a micro pencil just for desoldering holes? That is the easiest method I've ever known to clear holes. The only one you have to do it more on, this must be a quite heavy thermal mass, but still works. We probably just need to give this like 5 seconds. There we go. So with practice, that's my new way of clearing holes out. That's quite cool. So yeah, that was worth me messing around with, because now I feel confident that we could do that to clear holes. We've got to look at the state of the board the other side, like it might have made a complete mess. But good thing it's on my mat, it's not anywhere else. Like, it's blown it clean through the board, and like we haven't quite cleared there, for example. Let's just do that bit there. But yeah, it's blown it through the, to the mat without, nothing's gone on the board. It seems like it's literally blown the solder straight through. And these are holes I haven't done yet, by the way, so I'm just noticing it literally clears them absolutely perfect. Look at that. That is flawless. That's probably the best technique yet. And I've never seen anyone do this before. I don't know whether, I don't really ever see anyone using micro pencils, but you cannot tell me that is not an absolutely awesome way of clearing holes. Like, that's really cool. Yeah, that's well good. I like that. And then just got to remember to clean your desk up after, because that's the only thing you're left with, that mess underneath. But that's no matter. We can, where are we? Zoom out on this one. And then I normally see if it's stuck. Yeah, stuck in a nice little ball. So what you probably could do to clear that mess up is just get your soldering iron. Obviously not really the right tip. Let me change tips, because now I've actually brought the correct tip up. Let's put a big conical type tip thing on here. Wait for it to get up to temp. And you can just use your soldering iron to remelt the solder into one big ball and clear the soldering iron tip off. Done. So yeah, I think obviously we tried a load of different ways there, and looks like it took time, but now we know what works. I think that's going to be my new technique for clearing holes. Right, let me clear this desk up a bit now, because I've got stuff everywhere, and I was in the middle of a Sega Saturn build, obviously yesterday, when all the cameras screwed up. So I've just got stuff everywhere at the minute. Let me clean up and let me catch up on chat, because I haven't been looking at chat for a little while. I'll catch up in a second. Well, I'll catch up now as I'm messing around and clearing up. Why not use the solder gun? We've tried that a minute ago as well. Literally tried that on stream a minute ago. Didn't clear the holes very well. I've even got the correct size tip now, and I did say this does work, but it doesn't clear the holes fully. And it also makes a really annoying sound. So I don't think, even though I've now figured out how to use the desolder gun properly, I still think that sounds too annoying for make me want to use it. That tip can go over there. Right, I need a bag for these parts. Let me move the Saturn out of the way a minute. I'll finish this off later. Zoom that out a bit, we're a bit zoomed in. So over there, get a bag. Just put all this stuff out of the way a minute, and then we'll put a socket on here, and then I'm going to jump on the Game Gear 1 ASIC, because we have, that is the title of the screen technically. They've been delivered now, so I want to get a few of these built, make sure they work. Obviously, I hope they do, because I've made 500. The prototypes all worked fine, but I always still check, even if we have working prototypes, once I get mass production done, I double check again. Obviously, I get the products as they get delivered, test them before we ship them out to customers to make absolutely sure everything is as expected. So I'll put that queen cell in separate. Yeah, I think the Game Gear was definitely better than things like the Game Boy in terms of technological power, but it was a perfect example of where gaming, especially, it's not always to do with power. It's to do with, I guess, people's enjoyment in one way, marketing, the games that people commit to it. I think the Sega Game Gear and the Sega Saturn were both better, in my eyes, better than the Nintendo counterparts, but they definitely weren't as popular. It was more popular for, obviously, Nintendo by a long stretch. Yeah, from the UK, Stoke-on-Trent. Right, that is all the Sega Saturn stuff cleaned up and out of the way for now. I'll jump back on him later. I was going to do the FRAM mod, but I want to crack on with this Game Gear thing, because what we're on now is 6 o'clock, so I've got a few hours yet. Right then, clean the desk and then we can start afresh. And I've just done, I don't know if it's still here, that thing is gone, just done a Nomad. I don't technically work on them because we had to limit how many things we worked on, but I did it as a favour for a customer. Put the high-speedo screen in. The Nomads were, in my eyes, terrible screens, one of the worst. And the high-speedo screen's lovely. Like, it's still not as good as the clean screen, because it's mainly, I think, just because it's RGB, analog RGB coming out, not digital, and they have to, obviously, you have to pick points at which you convert the analog to digital, so it's never quite as pixel perfect as things like the Game Gear that can output pixel perfect signals, like digital signals. But I thought it was really nice, like seeing the Mega Drive Sonic on a small screen with all those added colours and everything else was like, because I'm used to seeing the Game Gear one, like Game Gear Sonic 1 and 2. The Mega Drive Sonic is so nice on a small screen. It's made me almost want to put a Nomad into a Game Gear, like maybe make a converter board. Why on Taste Slip? I've been up since 3 today. So I've spent the first couple of hours getting this side camera, so this one here. It failed on me yesterday when I was about to do a sub-only stream. So I've had to pay another £100 odd, I think it was, for an NDI license so that I can do this. So that's just now switched over to network. So this is now running through the Ethernet and not the HDMI connector. And that's the HDMI connector. So now I have this side camera in case it fails again. I've got 2 streams. I've got a network port and I've got a local HDMI port connected. So that took a few hours of my time this morning, otherwise I'd have been on even earlier. Yeah, Game Boy shell kit fits the high-speedos, every single model. Even the laminated V5, it fits in our shell with no cutting. We do offer the high-speedo as an option on the GBA send-ins and ready-built, but nobody picks it, they always buy the clean screen. I literally brought like 100 high-speedos because I figured people would like a cheaper option because the clean screen's more expensive. And pretty much nobody's brought the high-speedo. When they come to us, they always buy our clean screen. But yeah, it'll fit fine. So this is the production ready RePCB 1 ASIC. So I've built these on stream. but they were prototypes. This is now the fully mass produced. I've got, I think, 1,000 or either 500 or 1,000 of these. I think it's 1,000. So let's really hope these fully work and nothing changed between production and mass production, like, you know, sample run and mass production. Things can change, so I need to test this and really hope it doesn't. So we need to transfer an ASIC over here, and obviously we never know. Never know whether things are going to work off a Game Gear, because we don't know whether the ASICs we're taking off are even valid ASICs either. But if everything goes to plan, we'll just swap an ASIC over and this will all work. This one also comes with our crystal now. So again, if that's all working, you don't need to put a crystal on. The only thing you now need to put on this entire board is an ASIC. Chuck the ASIC on, and you can test using the USB socket here and a headphone plugged in here. So literally transfer your ASIC, attempt to read. Obviously here we use a game slot, so you don't need to even put the game slot, you know, the original one, and you can use our game slot that plugs in. So this is going to be much easier than the 2 ASIC. All we've got to do is put one chip on, but it's also a much finer pitch chip than the 2 ASIC. So in one way it's easier, and in another way, oh, that's nice, and I've focused it perfect. In another way it's a bit more difficult. And you'll see we have these as well. So VA1 is blobbed by default, but if you want to use VA45, this fully supports it. So you desolder this bridge, you solder this one, and then I've even put there, don't forget bottom right. You scroll down and it's here. So you need to blob solder on that pin and them 2 pins if you want to use the VA45, but by default most of them aren't VA45s. So this comes ready-made basically for normal ones. And then you've got all your test pads here if you want to solder your wires manually to other screens, which I wouldn't recommend. You want to use the clean screen, but you're free to try and use other screens. I'm sure pretty much every other screen on the market's been tested on these now and does work, but it's not something I plan to support or debug if people have issues. I've got no intentions to support the other screens. I want you to buy my screen, basically. So if you think other screens are better, you just let us know. I'm just about to release the V4 clean screen. It's gone into mass production today, so that will be out within 4 weeks, hopefully. And if it isn't, we're out of stock of clean screens anyway, because we have literally, I think 10 clean screens left, just to scare everybody. So if you want a Game Gear clean screen before Christmas, there's about 10 left, and then they're gone, and they won't be coming back. The V4 will be coming out. Right, so we need a Game Gear. We've got that ready. Let's pre-tin this first. So let's just get some solder on these pins. Give the new technique a name. Yeah, what are we going to call the whole micro pencil hole thing without being too... the only thing I can think of is names that aren't PG friendly. Using a micro pencil to desolder holes. See, look how much better the wellers are. I know I've spent about a month telling you guys that the £50 irons are as good as the expensive ones, and obviously that's why I've used them. And this isn't a new weller iron, this is one I've owned for about 10 years. But there is a level of difference every time you have to apply solder, and it's all in the well of this tip. So see how that well's full, so it just looks like flat. If I clean that off, you'll see it's actually got a divot in. These are one of my favourite tips. So you fill that divot with solder, and then you can do things like that, tin the whole thing without once having to reuse the solder. So yeah, the expensive irons are obviously better than cheap ones, just the difference between £50 and £1,000 isn't worth it unless you've got that kind of money to spare. So I just figured, again, the whole new mini hot air gun, I just decided to change the hot air station and my soldering iron back to another one as well, just to change it up a bit. So that's the retin done there. Let's get a Game Gear now. So I've got tons of 1A6, luckily. I've used all of the 2A6, we have none left, but I've got plenty of 1A6 now. So when I say I've literally got tubs full, I mean I've got tubs full. So here's one tub. So we have things to pick out of here. I've got about 5 of these tubs of 1A6, if not more. These are all ones that didn't work in terms of, I'll just start with the first one. These didn't work when we were originally working on them, or we've since brought more and chucked them in tubs ready for the 1A6. Looking at this, it hasn't been recapped, so this one looks like it's just one that's simply been purchased from somebody else that couldn't get it working, and we haven't even worked on it yet. So we're going to just take this ASIC off, that's all we care about. And then obviously I chuck these over to Zach to take this connector off and this connector off. So we keep these for the PC Engine GT. We can use these in a PC Engine GT, the big inductors, because you can't buy these. So these are like, you know, you want to salvage these. If you're stripping down Game Gears, keep these and sell them as Game Gear, PC Engine transformers. Or if you get plenty of them in a bulk, I potentially might buy some because I'll need about 500 of these in the future for the PC Engine GT stuff. So yeah, we'll take the connector off after, but all we care about is getting this chip off. So again, I've got another technique. The technique I use on this and have all along is just the hot air again. So my normal technique that I'm sure you've seen many times, if I actually screw the nozzles on correctly on my hot air guns, is hot air nozzle going around like this, and then lifting off with tweezers. So I'd get tweezers under here and lift up. So I've been buying loads of things. I went away for a week and I brought a ton of new equipment. So instead of using this nozzle now, I've even brought a nozzle for the 2A6 like this that goes over the 2A6 ones. And I've got a nozzle that should fit perfectly over this chip, like that. So that basically fits over, probably see it better on the side angle. Zoom in, come down here a bit. There we go, just move that up. This should fit over them pins perfectly over the chip. So the idea with this is you just hold the hot air gun there, steady, and it applies heat directly to the pins and not the IC to protect the IC. So that's the way we're going to attempt this one today, and I've done it on 2A6. I've used the this one on 2A6 and it works great. The only thing is you can't kind of get your tool under, so for that, instead of using tweezers, I'm going to be using this Hakko 394, and it's a vacuum lifter basically. So I don't know whether obviously it normally lifts the board up a little bit. Yeah, so that's got suction now, I can feel it. So it's not too strong that you'll ever rip traces, so you can see it won't lift the board up, so you're never going to rip traces. But if you had, have I got any chips lying around to show you? Not really. But if I get like a lighter board, say, like this, you'll probably see this will lift the board up. So you can see it's got just enough power to lift chips off, but not enough power to rip traces. So what we'll do, morning, welcome in. We will put the hot air over here. When we see all the pins reflowing, we'll wait a little bit longer, move the hot air out of the way, and try and quickly grab it with this. And then we're not going to accidentally, what I'll normally do when I put tweezers under, is the chip will lift up a bit, the legs will bend because they're super soft, and then it's harder to get back down on the other board. So, again, just hopefully an improvement in technique. This one has actually never been used, so I need to put the screws in. So let me just grab them. Hey, welcome from Norway. We've just, funnily enough, brought... I go Norway all the time, by the way. I've been like on cruises about 6 times. Nicest place I've ever seen in the world for scenery. We did like an 8-hour excursion on the first cruise to Norway, so we went on like a coach for 8 hours all the way up the fjords. Absolutely unreal. Like, I've never seen scenes like it in my life for visuals. Absolutely amazing. And then we went back about 5 times after that. I've only just been twice. I think I went twice last year or the year before. And Zach, funnily enough, if you ever spot him on camera, he wears a blue coat that we brought him from Norway, and he's just literally brought another one. Absolutely love Norway. That's now on. So you can tell I've never used this because we've not even got the screws in it yet. Do I film all repairs? No, I'm repairing constantly, so I'll normally repair in the morning before Zach starts, and then sometimes in the afternoon when Zach's about to finish, just so we don't interrupt the day too much. And I also have other work. I do software work and houses and other things. So no, there's about probably 5 or 6 things get repaired a day, and you probably see 1 or 2 of them. And a lot of what I do is more the product development, product testing, and some of the trickier installs or repairs. Oh yeah, the Northern Lights I never saw. So we stood out. Where did we go for that? We went to Iceland to try and see the Northern Lights, and stood out at midnight, absolutely freezing our tits off. Stood out there for like 2 hours buying hot chocolates at like £10 a pop. Never saw anything. But yeah, I might see them one day. The final product is Game Gears. We have shipped them all yesterday. So yesterday's stream, if you looked back, I kind of quickly showed you. Well, I only really zoomed in on the desk to show you we had 6 Game Gears yesterday. I don't think any more are built yet. Let's have a look. No. Maybe this is one we worked on. Oh yeah, so we've got, I think this is one for a customer to be either repaired from the desk to be worked on. But it's not screwed together. So this is either come in for repair by the looks of it because the screen's a bit dirty. But obviously this is a Game Gear. Presuming, let's see if it even works. Yeah, it'll come in for something. So must have some kind of issue, I presume, or maybe it's been worked on. Yeah, it looks like it's got probably game load issue. This is coming for probably. But yeah, that's the product. That's like the cream rare version. This was obviously our shell, but this is based on the original cream. That's a very rare Game Gear. This one's coming in for, it's got to be coming in for repair because it's on the desk to be worked on. You can see there's the original Game Gear board, and that's why it doesn't work. It's got a shitty little funny plain Game Gear screen on, so you're probably going to find out that's the problem with this board. At least the customer's gone with decent clean juice and clean amp duo. But yeah, these things are like genuine. I don't say it just because we own clean screens, but this is the worst Game Gear screen going. Even the cheaper, just unbranded screens are better than the funny plane. The funny plane is just a clone of a McWill. So they use the same Xilinx, the same RAM. It's just a really old clone, basically, not even made by them. So that one will get repaired. You won't see that one being repaired on stream, I doubt, because that will take that no problem. And then obviously this is our new board. This is the RePCB. That's literally a remake of this board, so we can just nick this chip off it, place it on here, and get a fully working Game Gear out of it. That's the idea. Electric screwdriver, yeah, it's one of the first ones I've found that does actually have enough power, and that's on the minimum power. So you can see when you press it, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and that, like this, will genuinely open almost anything a proper impact will undo. So just undoes. Yeah, I keep forgetting I'm left-handed and you can't see. You know, it'll go in, and you have to really, push down if you wanna. Obviously, crazy strong, and I'm not going to use this board, so that is literally on strength 1 there, and that's strength 2. It's actually threaded the plastic clean through. So obviously that's why I always use it on 1. And what I do is I hold, say I'm screwing down now, I'll hold it loosely like this. So when it gets to the bottom, instead of tightening over the plastic, my hand will just twist instead. So I don't do it like, I don't hold it like this. I hold it like this, but I'm holding it weak, and you'll see my hand just slightly turn like that when it's screwed in. So I'll just screw down without holding this firm, and then it'll either spin up like that, but it's not going to round because I'm not applying pressure, or most screws bite, and then you feel like they just won't bite. Some of them bite, and basically you feel your hand twist, and you let your hand kind of twist instead of over tightening. So normally you don't want to hear that clanger do-do-do because you're normally rounding screws off, but I'm holding it loose for that reason, so that when it does tighten, I don't over tighten small screws. In terms of make though, this is I think I got it off TikTok, funnily enough. I got it a while ago. Might be TikTok, but if you can find it, it's just, I don't think there's even a make or a brand. Maybe that TY SCO7 is the make of that, I'd say. Right, so where were we? We wanted to take this chip off, so let's go over this chip. I'll put some flux on just to naturally deoxidize the pins as we're taking it off, and then I'll use the Hako little lifter tool to lift it off when it's done. I think we actually found out the best way for you guys to see this is this side camera zoomed in, to be honest, so you can see it happening. That works better than the top down for this, because the way it works. And then I'll plonk it probably straight onto this board. So I'll keep this board out the way. I'll put some flux ready on this other board. Now the only thing to bear in mind when I'm moving it over, and don't let me forget this, is on this board, see the Sega text is facing down. On my board, this text wants to be facing across. So the way I write the text inside these holes is the way you want to see the text. So this text wants to be literally that way. So we'll have to lift it off here, twist it anti-clockwise, and then place it onto that board. So if you see me not twist it, or you see when I place it down on this board, Sega isn't written this way, give me a shout, because I'm putting it on the wrong way, basically. And this is set, well it isn't, but I'm going to set it now to 330, so 330 degrees Celsius and 80% airspeed. I'm going to set this to. And TikTok have apparently suspended gifting for 10 minutes because I'm asking for gifts. I don't remember asking for gifts. Gotta love TikTok. I don't think anyone's even gifted unless I've not even been paying attention. But yeah, let me just show you this. This is what I deal with every time on TikTok. Something just completely random. If it isn't suspended from views, it's... I've apparently been asking you guys for gifts. So yeah, somebody tell me if I've just asked you for a gift, because I genuinely can't remember doing that. I mean, feel free to send me one now. You've got 10 minutes till you can. But yeah, they've either got AI that just doesn't work and just keeps banning random lives, or something else I don't even know. Right, so what I'm going to do actually, I'm going to turn this board that way. Yeah, there we go. So what I've done is I've just got the other board ready and placed him here, like on an angle. Wow, that's not very clear. Is that too close for the zoomy? Yeah, it's like too close for the zoom, but I've put that at an angle, the right orientation, so I can lift it off here and place it on there without, you know, having to remember to twist the board, basically. So that's what I'm going to do on there. 80 pin QFN, no, this is 144 pin, I think. And I think it's a 20mm by 20mm QFN. The head thing I'm using here, I think it's a 20mm by 20mm. Again, we don't care about melting the plastic or the connectors or anything on this board. We're not using this board, we're only using these we're only using the chip off it to gain this ASIC off. And what we're looking for is these pins here to start bubbling. That's kind of the visual where we're looking for. And then once it does, we will give it probably another 10 seconds. So now it's pretty much bubbling good. Give it another 10 seconds and I can probably lift this chip off. Right, I reckon that's good. So I'm going to remove the heat, go in with this little solder socket and try pick him up. Look at that, straight off. Place him on the other board. And we'll put the hot air down a minute. Move this board out of the way. And now we have this one that we want to position. So you can see there's the chip. We can pick him back up and place him back. And the only thing with this I say now is you want to be as accurate as you can be on the position of this, because when we come to resolder this down, we can't really see I normally nudge the chip around and stuff, and when you're using this hot air tip that kind of engulfs the entire CPU, you can't really nudge it while you're hot airing, so you want to get this in as best position as you can before you reflow. So that looks pretty good. Let's zoom in. Yeah, I think TikTok. I get blocked all the time. Like I say, I was up to 500 consecutive viewers on TikTok, and as soon as I got that, they ban almost every single feed. It's just annoying because TikTok's my biggest audience for the repairs by far, and obviously we're growing it now on YouTube and Twitch, but it's like where everybody knows me in terms of these repairs, and TikTok just do not let me grow. They're so not wanting me to grow and not wanting people to, you know, see what we do. That's why it's kind of annoying. Obviously I don't charge anyone to watch, and it's just my time, so it's kind of annoying that they prevent that from even being, you know, people seeing what I do. Right, that's positioned nicely. I will move this down because that's a position I want to work in. There we go, and same idea. I think this camera isn't... Oh yeah, there we go. I think see the little glitches as well, and the little red through there. That's where I'm saying I get the little interference on this side cam, this obs cam. It seems like it's struggling at the minute. It's what happened yesterday. So now we'll go back on with the hot air. Ooh. And similarly, this should take about, move that slightly over, should take about the same time. It's pretty quick, and we're looking for the pins to bubble. And then what I'll do with this is, once the pins bubble for a few seconds, I'll remove it, apply some fresh flux, and then go back on with the hot air again. Yeah, I think it's the wrong way. Nope, right way. It's the camera's at the side, so this is actually the top of the board here. So the text is going this way. I've twisted the board around, so I'm actually working on it sideways just to confuse everyone. Yeah, if it's on the TikTok, and it's like, I have recommended people to try, you know, YouTube in case we ever get to the point where TikTok just don't let me post and stream because they keep blocking it, then at least, you know, we haven't gone offline. We're just, you know, we'll still be streaming. And I do have, you know, I am verified on TikTok as well. I do have a full account manager and everything. I should probably reach out and just say, can you see why I'm constantly getting, like, you know, suspensions and warnings, and they're not really banning anything, they're just like blocking visibility on the stream and stuff like that, which is just more annoying than anything. So you can see these pins all reflowed, and even though they're in line, we've got quite a few bridges. and that just does happen on these 1 ASICs. I do find you'll get naturally a lot more solder bridges that you just have to remove after. So a bit of fresh flux, reflow again for a few seconds. And that's all good. So now we'll obviously have to remove them bridges. But those bridges won't come off by just keeping the hot air on longer. That's not how it works. It's going to have to be soldering iron down the side. Yeah, so I'm not. That's obviously got all the pins on, but it's defo going to need soldering iron running down it to clear off. See all them bridges. So all those, you just need soldering iron. This is one time where this tip can be a good thing for you or a bad thing, because this is going to add more solder. So I'm going to clear the tip off so it doesn't have anything in, like that. And we should just be able to pretty much run the tip down. So that's on. I'm just going to run this tip down. Ooh. Trying to watch a delayed live stream. Probably need some fresh solder, fresh flux. We can see the joints come off nice and easy. They're not hard to remove. You just basically tap your iron on them and they come off. Let's turn this around. That side looks okay. Those pins at the end are meant to be joined. They're 2 ground pads. Can't see any other bad joints on there, I don't think. Top side though has got some, so same idea. And to be honest, I don't even know whether they're on. Yeah, they are. The pads are underneath. I thought they were all miles away, but they are actually on. So same idea. Touch the pins. Once the iron gets a bit full, clean him off. And again, this is where I think we want a bit of extra flux. Try to do it with me left hand. And then blob on. Blob on. Yep, and you just want to be careful. Notice I'm always going in with the iron and stroking away in line with the pins. These pins are very, very soft. So you don't really want to drag this way because you will move pins. So I'm kind of going in and dragging down, basically. That's why you see me dragging out. It's only really a problem on the 1 ASIC, the very soft pins. So I think that looks all good, as far as I can see. I think we're all good there. So let me know if you guys see anything I haven't there. But I think that looks okay. Probably get the hot air over there just to clear some of this flux, warm it back up a minute just to soften that flux. You're awake to tune in. Yeah, we've been on a few hours now, I think. No, an hour and a half. I've been up a good few hours, but we've been on stream for an hour and a half. And yeah, I think the only thing I don't like with using that soldering iron tip, I know it's much better for the soldering, well, kind of, is that clearing the flux off after, because the board isn't as hot in general overall, the flux can be a bit harder to clean off. Morning, welcome in. We are just inspecting my solder work to make sure everything looks good. And these 1 ASICs are so much more difficult to visually tell, but they look good. I'm just going to poke a few of them just to be sure, because I haven't done many of these 1A6 at all yet. And again, bear in mind, oh yeah, these aren't even soldered at all. I thought they were floating. The entire thing is floating. So is that... Yeah, I think this is why I need to go back to not necessarily using that overall tip, because you've got no control or visibility as you're hot airing. Yeah, so they're on, but the reason that's happened is these need to be, this is why I mentioned these chips need to be pushed down when you're hot airing, because they'll have legs that bow up, and we've taken that off clean and not moved anything, but we still needed to push down on the pins, so that's why that hasn't gone down. But because of using, I mean, it won't be that big of a problem, but because of using this tip, what I'm going to have to do is, and to be honest, I normally do it on the other ones, and I say that's what I do. I've just kind of, I think, skipped the step on this one. We'll warm it back up, and then I normally get it bubbling, move, I think I even said it on this stream, move this out of the way, push down, and then let it cool while you're pushing down, basically. So I'll just go straight over from the top. I'm not going to change the camera angle because it'll only take a few seconds, and then I'm going to push down, so all them pins should solder. Repairs when somebody pays up front, diagnostics for an order but doesn't set a contact. We've got that. We have that all the time. With how many we get in, a couple a month all the time. We'll normally reach out to them, email them, ask them to send the console as you do, several reminders, and then we have a cut-off where after 2 months we lock the order, we just ignore it and do nothing. And after 3 months, if we hear nothing back from them, they haven't sent them, we refund the order. But we normally... Oh, the screen's gone off, 1 second. I presume the streamer's on, but my TV's turned off. 1 second, guys. My entire TV's decided to turn off on me. There we go. Oh, wow. Yeah, my TV turned off, screwed up everything. All my chat and windows have resized. Are we all good on stream? Did that not like screw up for you guys? Was that just my screen that completely screwed everything up for me? Yeah, I forgot what I was even saying now about the... but yeah, if people don't send them in after, you know, a few months, we refund, basically. Oh, that's why my TV's decided to tell me. It's the problem with using a giant monitor as, well, a TV as a monitor. It's decided to just do an update. It just popped up saying, successfully updated. Right, thanks. You just literally updated the TV mid-stream while I'm looking at my stream to see what I'm doing. Right, so that's melting the legs. I'm going to move over, push down firm, and that is what should set the pins in, basically. So, yeah, so luckily it just looked like it was my TV updating. Early start, yeah, basically I've just been up since... Been up quite early. I've got my energy back again out the blue. I got a new Sage. One of the guys that watches the streams works for Sage, so I got a nice discount on some good Sage coffee machines. I had like 4 espressos at 8 last night, testing out the machine. So I've been up since literally I've been up since, probably awake since 3. I've been down since 3:30, and then I come on stream about, I don't know, did I come on at 5? 4, 5, I don't even know, I wasn't even looking at the time, to be honest. Right, let's see if they're soldered. I'm not even going to clean up yet. Let's test if these pins are soldered. No? Wow. These 1A6 are shit. Is this going to be a hand soldery jobby then? See what I mean about how soft they are? I'll end up breaking that leg in a minute. I think I'm just going to have to hand solder this. That kind of sucks because I like hot airing. I think we are going to have to hand solder this, because those pins are not going down even with hot air and pushing. That sucks. That should really be flowing. when it's not. Oh well, I guess it's fine tip soldering time. Where's the tip? Where did I get the hot air tip from? AliExpress. You have to be careful what you say on these TikTok streams. I'll be banned again in a second. Right then, let's zoom in on this. In fact, I probably want to use the microscope for this. How did I trap that in? Trapped the wire in a bit too tight. Right, so this is, it won't be as clear for you guys as me. Where's my HDMI one? There. I'll probably have to disable and enable. Oh, there we go, just as I said that. So that's my microscope. Let me get into position for me to work in, because I need my depth perception really first. Turn them lights on. So that is probably good for me there. And oh, that's not good for you guys. Which way around? That way. And then focus wise, yeah, that focuses for you. So that's how I kind of need to work. Now, it's not bad for you, but it's not as clear as my eyes, but there's where I'm going to work. Yeah, you normally use, it's the first couple I've really done in a long while. So yeah, I'll probably end up hand soldering these by the looks of it. Hot air removing and then hand soldering. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. What's the name of the thin wire? This, where is it? There's blue stuff, so this stuff here, this thin wire that looks black but is blue, that's enamel wire. So sometimes you find it called magnet wire, but it's basically enamel wire. And you can get it in red, blue, black. If you're lucky, you tend to find it in copper colour and red colour are the two most populous, but I've managed to find it through my factory in a few other colours. Alright, so it's been a while since I've done fine point hand soldering. Used to be really good at doing this, but haven't done this in a while, so let's see. I'd normally recommend as well, I've got 0.7mm solder, so that's too much solder really. Let me see if Zach's got 0.3mm. No, I don't think I have. No, I've got tons of 0.7. I've got 0.3 coming, but I don't have any on me, so my man's fueled up. Got, yeah, 3 espressos and some bright natural energy. Don't think I've missed any other comments. Yeah, so basically what I'm going to try now is single pin soldering, which I'd normally use a lot less solder for this. So I'm going to have to put a bit of solder on the tip at a time and do a few pins. And like I say, I wouldn't normally drag solder these ones because they're so fine, but this tip is also that fine that, to be honest, this kind of works okay. I'm not applying much pressure at all on my soldering iron, so it might look like I'm dragging the pins. I'm being very delicate with the pins, I'm not dragging them. And we really want to make sure on these, just because of how we've seen they're not soldering with hot air, we want to make sure there's plenty of solder so that these really do bond. But yeah, I don't think I'm doing too bad of a job for not having done this style of soldering in a while, but in fairness, this used to be one of the main things that I was good at and used to do, was, you know, very fine pitch soldering. I've just got that used to using a big fat iron that I thought maybe I wouldn't be able to get straight back into it, but seems to be okay at it. I'm just flooding these pins with, you know, plenty of solder. That's why I'm going back up and down them, even though they were all soldered. I just want to make sure there's plenty of solder on these pins, so that we don't just end up with, you know, solder on the pins or the pads. I really want to give them plenty of solder. So I'm just dragging this, see this kind of ball that's on the pins? I'm dragging that back down the pins to pretty much flood them so they take up as much solder as they want. And then once I get to the end, if I've still got plenty of solder, which I probably will have looking at this, we'll just clean the tip, go back in and out with the tip a few times, maybe with a bit of extra flux, and it'll kind of pull away that excess solder. So now we're at the end and we've kind of flooded them all with plenty. You can either use desolder wick, but then I wouldn't use desolder wick on this chip because you'll very easily pull the pins. You can either change your tip, like if I now go back to this conical tip, and we might find that this tip's actually better for this job. This one can suck in all that extra solder quite easily. So if we give this a second to... Oh no, it's not going to recognise the tip. Oh no, it's already killed me tip. I mean, these are all old tips, but there we go. Yeah, this will probably just suck all that up now. There you go. So this tip will try on the other side. They're all sorted now and reflown. Let's actually take this time to probe them. I don't want to probe too hard because, again, these are very delicate pins, but we also need to make sure they're soldered. Yeah, so they're soldered well. I think just hot air to put these down doesn't work the best. So yeah, they all look solid. I'm not going to check the rest off, kind of, you can see them. And now let's do these. So let's now pull focus for you. There we go. I don't know whether if I remove now, see, much better for me with the light there, but on stream it causes a bit of a reflection, but I can probably zoom out a little bit. There we go. I've got a little bit of solder in here, so I'm just going to try this tip, and again, delicately drag down. So yeah, to be honest, if you're delicate, you can just drag solder these with the big tip. Just be very, very gentle with. I'm almost floating this iron tip above, because you will bend these legs if you apply any form of pressure. So yeah, it actually doesn't take long at all. It's probably almost as quick as hot airing. And then to clean this, I'm not going to use the melamine sponge either. I'm going to use a little cotton wool bud and roll away from the board. Like so. That's getting a bit sticky because it's cold. We didn't clean that up while it was warm. Yeah, they all look okay. We've got a few solder blobs there. We can see now it's clean. So see them little solder blobs there. They actually look like they're on the board, to be honest. Oh, I bet those 3 pins are actually soldered together. Let me just check on the I can either check on the schematic board, let's just grab another board. I've got a feeling them 3 pins that you can see there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, pins 7, 8 and 9 down from the left, I think will be pins that are already joined. Yeah, so you can see, oh, that's quite a rocking microscope. Why has that got so much movement? There we go. Pull focus, and pin 7, 8 and 9, you can see them joined in the board there. I think it was pin 7, 8 and 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, 7, 8 and 9. See this little line between the two? You can just about see that little cross there. That is those 3 pins joined. So those 3 pins are literally joined, and then you can see the ground plane, or whatever plane that is. It's probably ground. See this plane here underneath? A little white line. So those 3 are meant to be joined. So on ours, where it looks like we've got 3 joined pins there, they are actually meant to be joined. So if you're doing drag soldering on this, or you're installing, just remember pins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 are meant to be joined. So you're not going to remove that bridge, because that's literally the copper underneath on the circuit board tinning. All the rest look fine though. Right, so we'll go to this side now. Zoom out a bit, pull focus, and yeah, so far, based on the 2 I've just done, I'd recommend this kind of, I think the thing is you can only get this kind of conical tip with the flooding. I can't remember what they call them, I used to use them all the time. Don't know whether they're gull tips, but basically I think you can only get them for certain irons. And the Waller's the one I remember. I think the only one I remember that I've got it on. So coincidentally this works really good for this job, so you can see how flawless and easy that's just done all them pins, because it's got plenty of heat. With it being a thick tip as well, you get the benefit. That's why I always recommend really thick tips, even for micro soldering half the time, because the micro tips don't have as much airflow and as much heat transfer rather. So the pins next to it are cooler, and the solder balls don't flow as easy, whereas on this, just dragged all the way down in one go, and it's perfectly fine. So now the last side, here, get that in view, and we'll just have to drag down in one go, I reckon, same idea. And again, the key is, do not apply much pressure. Like, I am not dragging on them pins. I am resting my iron. I'm almost resting the tip on this, tilting it inwards like this, you know, so tilting and resting on here, just a little bit, not extreme. I'm just tilting it so the tip's actually on here, and it's floating as it goes across there. It's not even really making contact with the actual board, if that makes sense, like the pins. Otherwise, like I say, I keep reiterating, but you will bend them pins if you drag solder and apply too much physical force to the pins. And then once the pins are bent, your job gets a lot harder. So I think we look okay there. I think those pins look nice and solid now. But yeah, I think it's going to have to be hot air the chip off, and maybe hot air it on, because I think, to be honest, I think the hot air on worked because we have, by doing the hot air first and putting it on, the chip's already aligned, so it's in position. You've got the solder already on the pins, so you don't have to add solder flood, you haven't got a pre-tin. I still think I will hot air the chip off, hot air it on, and then go down with the iron. I think that's the technique I'll use, because the hot air unit on is still doing quite a lot for us. It's aligning the chip, it's pre-tinning the pads with what we need. So I don't think it's a complete waste. I think we need to do both things. So a little clean up of this board now, and then we'll give this a test. And hopefully the first one works. Because, again, these are the first batch of the production run. So if they don't work, you start questioning whether you've got a problem with the boards versus just the chip or the soldering. So I'd like to see the first one working. And it'll give us some confidence then that, you know, this is fully working. And we can build more. But, as is the case whenever I stream stuff, this will probably be nothing but problems for us. So let's go to the side, let's zoom out a bit. Morning Mark, welcome in. BGA stuff, to be honest, BGA is a very specialised technique. I spent a long time figuring out how to do them. Firstly, I did it on the... I can probably show you after this. What are we? 7 o'clock. Let's test if this works, and I'll show you some BGA work. I don't actually have all the stuff out, but I'll kind of show you the... I'll show you the technique. I won't be able to do it fully because I don't have the stencils and things out, but I'll show you the techniques. But yeah, it's a very, very specialised thing that has completely different skill set than normal soldering. The way you'll hot air BGA is nothing like the way you'd hot air anything else, so at least the way I've done it. Right, so we need a game, we need a screen. What else do we need? We need the speaker. We keep robbing each other's speaker because mine's broke, so I think Zach's hid it so I can't steal it. So maybe no speaker then, let's hope this works on screen. I don't know where it's gone. My speaker broke and then I nicked Zach's, and then I think he's had it back and hid it. So I could always use headphones, or solder the ribbon on and actually listen for audio through the clean amp. But hopefully this will work first time. I think we deserve a bit of good luck because we've had so many 2 ASICs with bad luck, because, I mean, in fairness, that was me killing them, but I still think we're due a bit of good luck. Liverpool, no, I'm in Stoke. Stoke-on-Trent, so just down from Liverpool. Down and a bit to the right, I think. This board is a Game Gear, so this is the Game Gear we just robbed the chip off. It was a broken, non-working Game Gear, and we've just transferred it onto this, a new product, the RePCB, so it's basically a new PCB for this. You know, in China they've got 5-year-old boys doing that job, yeah, and they're probably better at me than doing it as well. Right, so turn on. Yay! Well, I'll say yay. Has the game loaded yet? Oh, look at that! First time. Audio. Well, we know it's working. I don't need to put Sonic audio on. We know that's working. Oh, he says, leaving that resting on the board. I probably shorted something out on the screen. Yeah. Plonk metal on metal. Maybe not do that. Yes, that's... I'm celebrating, and people on the video, on the vertical, can't even see it working. There we go. Shall I actually turn Sonic around for once? We always show Sonic off upside down. There we go. So, Sonic working on the one ASIC. That's all good. Short circuit in the corner of the chip. That's a ground pad, so those two chips are meant to be joined. So, on this, if you're doing... Well, you will be doing these, I'm sure. Plenty of people. Unplug the cable. If you do these, there's a few things to just note. You have these two pins are meant to be joined to the ground, and pins, I've said it a few times and I've forgot already, but we'll count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pins 7, 8 and 9 down here. Or it's not actually pin 7, 8 and 9 on the schematic, but the 7th, 8th and 9th pin down here that you can't really see on this camera, you need the microscope. But they are, you can kind of just about see, you know, that bit of solder there going between them. Those 3 pins are meant to be joined together. So those 3 pins and those 2 pins are the only ones that should be joined, and everything else is obviously fine. So yeah, that's that all done. Yeah, with the shaky hands, I'm sure something I'm probably gonna get when I'm older. Luckily, I'm on a very low sugar diet at the minute, so that should help me. I think it's good for your brain and good for a lot of things, isn't it? I think I've never felt this good in a long while. Mainly under eating. Like, obviously, I'm losing weight because I'm under eating. But yeah, cutting out all sugars, I can't tell you how much that's made a massive difference. I'm up earlier, I'm awake longer, I'm happier. It's like that. I can't say enough how good, strangely enough. I've dieted before and it's never been, the diets don't make me feel better, they normally make me feel worse, but specifically having a high protein, low sugar diet has made me massively more alert and active and energetic. And yeah, I'm on like 1,300 calories a day at the minute for the last month and a half, so massively under eating technically, but full of energy. What do you think about using solder paste? I used to do that at the start. I wouldn't bother with solder paste and reflow table. I'd just pre-tin the pads and hot air them. It's the same idea. Literally no benefit to solder paste. Unless you wanted to do like a mass assembly where you're going to, say, solder paste this entire board. You know, you're going to apply solder paste over all of it, plonk all your components on, and then heat the whole board up in an oven or a reflow plate. I wouldn't bother. It's quicker to just tin the pads and hot air components on. I used to do, like I say, the plate at the start, like literally 15 years ago when I was first doing any kind of electronics. That's what I used to do. Right, I'll show you the BGA technique in a second. So let me just get that out. Where have we got some BGA chips? Right, so I can't really show you, like I say, putting them on properly, which won't matter because it's the technique. It's not like I'll show you what you need to do, and these are all faulty boards, and show you the technique. But they probably wouldn't make good contact because I won't be doing the reballing stage of it. Oh yeah, tons of people on Manjaro. It's definitely does. I think it does a lot more than just you know, whatever it does, suppress appetite and things. I think it's fixing people's internals and fixing the metabolisms a lot more than we know. I think it's one of them. I don't think it's been in the media long enough for people to not be skeptical of it, but I honestly think that's probably going to be one of them things like penicillin that stays around forever. I think it might well be one of them miracle drugs that people are just skeptical about at the minute, but, you know, helps people out. You see everywhere now, don't you? Pretty much everybody. Right, so let me just go and grab a coffee then, because I've got a new coffee machine. So before we do the BJ, let me just go quickly grab a coffee. Leave that on stream. Where's my coffee cup? So yeah, back in it. Well, it might be 5 minutes because I've got a proper coffee machine now, but be back in a second. Just going to get a drink and then we'll do some BJ reballing. There we go, we're back, and look at that. So that is a nice coffee. I mean, I'm still not great at it yet. I've got to get used to the machine, but I've got a new Sage coffee machine, so I've made a little cortado. Oh god, that's good. That's so much better. Right, BGA. Where do we start? So let me check if I've missed any comments. Don't think I have. Yeah, so if you want to do BGA stuff, and for those that don't know what BGA is, let's probably just whip a chip off first. These have all got the same one. This is an FPGA on here. So this is a BGA chip, and instead of pins, so sometimes you'll see down the side of these they have pins, and that's actually a QFN, so a quad flat no pin package, like this. So this is a QFN, so it looks similar from above, flat chip, but obviously on the QFNs, or this has just got pins both sides, you see them down the edge. So this one isn't the same. This is a BGA, and you look down the sides and you can see you can't see anything. So if you look right down, you'll see there's the solder balls. So they're the what's called a ball grid array. That's what BGA is. So you see them pins down there, there's a load of balls under there. Where there's a quad flat pack there, it's just literally pins on the side of the chip. So let's take them both off, and then you can see what they're both like. I haven't got the tip on the hot air. I'm going to have to swap it around. This is the only downside to this hot air station. I need 3. I need one with the Game Gear stuff on, one with the micro tip on, and one with this general tip on. Need a bigger desk. Okay. Yep, solid. Turn that back on, and let's just take this chip off. So taking them off is no different. Removing the chips is exactly the same as you'd remove any other chips. Oh my god, this coffee is so good. I'm going to end up putting weight back on now. I'll be drinking that much coffee. I've been having black coffee as well, and now I've got this machine. I've started having like cortados and things, so not as healthy as black coffee. So I'm just going to take this chip off so you can see what it's like underneath. So you can see that's underneath a QFN package. On the back of the chip, you can see it looks like that. You have pins running down. Sometimes they go all around. This has just got pins down 2 sides, and a center pad which is mainly for thermal. So this is a power reg, that center pad's for thermal. Now for the BGA, for reflowing them, exactly the same as what we've just done for the Game Gear. Apply flux and solder, hot air, and it'll pull down. I'll show you putting it back on after. This one though, this is a BGA, so a ball grid array. If you remove this, you're not going to get it back on unless you have the tools. So me taking this off now, this wouldn't work again if I just hot aired this off and hot aired it back on. So just be mindful of that if you're going to do any BGA work. You can't just literally hot air them off and, you know, use your soldering iron. You need solder balls or solder stencils with solder paste. You need technique basically. So if we take that off, you can see on the bottom of this is a bunch of what's called solder balls. So if we zoom right in on there, you can see there's all the little tiny circle pads, and this is a very fine pitch pad, so all these traces coming in like spider webs all go to these pads. The chip itself has got the balls on, which you can see now they're all spiky and dry and loose, whereas this one is obviously completely different. So the 2 chips are very much different. You can see that's a QFN, that's a BGA, but if you flip them over, you generally, from above, unless you look at the PCB, you wouldn't generally see much of a difference. Let's start with just putting this QFN one back on. This is nice and easy. So all you have to do for that is make sure there's no real over blobbing of solder on here. That's perfectly fine. On this down here, on these pins, bit of flux. You would apply some solder to these pads. So if these weren't tinned already, you'd apply some solder to these pads. So this has already got solder on, but if I wanted to, I'd put some more on like this. One thing I'd avoid though is do not flood this centre pad with solder. That's one of the main issues people have. There'll be way too much solder. If you touch your iron on the centre pad, it's going to fill with solder. You don't want that to be filled with solder. Not the way I do it anyway. So you want the smallest amount of solder on there, that's just enough. If you put too much on, use desolder wick and get it off. And then if we now get the hot air station, I'll probably maybe zoom out a little bit so you can see this. But what you're after when you put these back on, doesn't really matter which way this goes back on. I don't know which way it goes back on because I've not got a pin indicator, but again, makes no difference because this is a dead board. Let's put it on this way. You'll basically hot air down on the chip. This chip will then, you'll see it kind of attached to the board. So if I leave it there, you'll see it attach and then pull into place. So you shouldn't really need to do anything. It should just find its way, melt, and then surface tensions pull that into place. Don't take the heat off yet though, because as soon as that chip attaches like that, it's going to cool down because they both bond. You have to actually keep going for quite a bit more time. And then what you want to do is start moving the air in circles like this, and this chip should kind of follow the airflow. So it doesn't always if your airflow is not high enough, but what you should find is a good kind of test people have to see if it's fully soldered on is they will do this and see it dance. So I don't think this one's going to dance because my hot air is quite low, and I know it's soldered, and it was soldered a while ago. But you will, if I put the hot air faster speed and went in circles, you'd see the chip kind of following. The other thing you might want to do as well is wait for it to cool, so it's actually on, and then push down. So see how that's completely molten? You'd wait for it to completely like solidify so it's in position, and then you'd push down with your tweezers firm. So you get your tweezers now, push down firm and warm back up, and the solder will ball out either side. So see how the top left now got a solder joint, like it's bridged two pins. That's fine, just leave it pushed down until it sets like that, and that will ensure when you're doing this reflow that the QFN is soldered well. Don't worry about bridges. It won't ever bridge on a QFN by pushing down firm. It'll just squish the solder out to the sides. It won't be physically possible to put a bridge inside the chip. And then to get rid of them bridges on the edge, just touch your iron down the side like that, and you remove the bridge. And you see how it also rides up the pins? That's how you know it's kind of soldered on well. So that one, if I pull focus on there, maybe zoom in a bit, maybe clean up. You can see, you could always do the same on that side. You're not going to make a short by rubbing the iron up and down the side. You're just going to reflow the pins nicely. And that's what you're looking for, that kind of natural lift. So see how the solder flows from the pad on the PCB up the chip leg, and see how it's not so much doing it on that second one. That'll still be soldered, but that little, like almost tick, that little lift up at the sides is what you're looking for like a perfect solder joint on a QFN. So that's pretty much perfect there. So that's how you solder them. That's not really a challenge. That's like, you know, fairly standard. For BGA though, totally and utterly different technique. Temp I've used for the hot air was 330 and 80 degrees Celsius, but that's mainly because the circuit board is tiny. So you should be able to still use 330. You just have, it's all based on time and feeling. It's not one of them where don't go off, I've used 330 Celsius and 80% airspeed. Go off a feel. Get used to it. Once you successfully do it, you'll learn what temperatures, times and speeds work for you. It's mainly observing the solder, seeing it go molten and shiny and stuff. Ideally, when you're moving around, you'd see it flow and move. You know, it's more a skill and technique thing. You get used to, when you've done it a few times successfully, you'll get used to what you see and what you observe, and it's very hard to teach that other than give you the right tools in the first place, and then once you do it successfully, you'll start going, yeah, that's how the chip behaved, or that's how the solder flowed, or that's how much smoke from my flux come off when it was ready. Like, I got used to the flux I was using before this, smoking and bubbling at a certain temperature, and I got very used to, right, that's 10 seconds after that, this Game Gear is going to reflow. And then I changed to this other brand of styri, like this other version, which is halide free, I believe. And it doesn't bubble. So now I was like waiting for the bubble and realised something doesn't feel right. I've gone a lot longer on the heat than I normally would, and I was like waiting for the bubbling as a cue. So there's a lot of things when you're soldering, you'll find techniques and little things that you notice that work for you and give you a hint at when things are working. So for BGAs, the first thing you're going to do is you want these completely dry. You don't want anything on these pads. So contrary to every other type of solder joint, you want to completely remove all of the solder off these balls, and they can be delicate, so you don't necessarily want to drag firm. And what you sometimes might want to do is hot air the board. So like even on this, I know it's small, but what I'd do is say, get your hot air, get plenty of flux on this. You can probably even just use hot air and a desolder braid to rub and remove these, but be careful with an iron that you're not dragging too firm and damaging the board. So I'm going to see if we can use just hot air and a braid to remove these balls that are left on. And everybody will do BGA different, by the way. My technique's probably not the same as anybody else's. Everybody has their own techniques that work, but I'll show you what works for me. And I've done BGAs on like Sega Naomi's that are like 600 pin BGAs and stuff, and got them on successfully multiple times, so I know my techniques work for me. But you know, you might see completely different techniques from others. The best way of doing it's obviously going to be a BGA rework station, though, the tool that's, you know, designed for the job, that's pretty much fully automated, but this is the way you do it without tools. So that's all flat. So see how them pins are totally flat. So there's nothing on there at all. That's just the copper that's tinned. So that's what you want, totally and utterly flat on the PCB. Then on your chip, this is where I can't show you because I don't have the stencils with me, and the balls, they're just not here because I don't really do much BGA at the minute, so I haven't got them in the room. But I'll show you what you would do. The first thing again is to clear these pins, and normally you want this to be held as well. You normally have a little clamp for these if you're going to start working on small chips. You want to remove all of the existing balls and solder from the chip. Probably get the fan on there, forgetting the fan. And the chip's quite more resilient to dragging around like this than the PCB, so you tend to find you can drag your iron on the chip. And this again wants to be totally flat, so not just like you think most of it's off, it needs to be completely flat, or you know, very 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 close to completely flat, because this is all the importance of BGA. You are very much relying on the exact amount of solder on these chips for this entire process to work. That's how BGA really works, is you've got to have the exact right amount of solder going down, and then the reflow is very easy, but it's all about technique and preparation on this. So you can see there is, let's see if that is technically, I know we're not going to do it for real because I don't have the balls anyway, so it's not too much of a concern if it's not flat, but let me show you if it is flat enough or not. So pull focus. Let's get some light on the show actually. Whoa, that's a bit too much light. I forgot this lens isn't auto calibrating, auto exposure. Yes, that looks flat enough, I think. Yep, pretty much completely flat. So see from the side, you can't see anything. Totally flat. Morning, yeah, I'm just demoing. I'm not actually going to do the BGA. I don't have the balls on me, I'm just showing the technique involved. And this is the guy, by the way, that's helped me get the awesome coffees. So there's my morning cortado. All the artwork's disappeared off the top, my little smudge. But yeah, I'm saying I'm going to end up putting weight on. I've started drinking milked coffees again now I've got this machine. But God, they're so nice. It's when I start coming in with full lattes and flat whites now instead of baby cups. It's going to go from this to a tankard of coffee soon, I think. Right, so we have... comment. I'm forgetting I've got comments on TikTok as well I need to quickly look at. Oh no, I haven't really missed any actually, to be honest. Just one on the, BGA Xbox GPUs. They're not too bad, to be honest. The Xbox GPUs, the original, is it the 360? I can't remember which. Yeah, 360 BJs are quite wide. But yeah, BGA is never fun. Yeah, I take no responsibility. You're definitely going to be to blame if I start getting a fat face again after all this work and I'm sitting drinking lattes on stream. We're going to be having words, I think. Right, so once you've done the removal, this is where you would get little BGA balls. Now, I don't think I've got any lying around because I could do it. I just don't think I've got any literally here. No, I definitely haven't. I know where they are. I've just remembered where they are. So let me just pull up a picture. I could always do some BGA work properly for you on like the sub-only streams at some point, but let me just show you what they are. It's pretty easy to kind of show you. You don't need to see them. I say it's pretty easy to show you. Not quite that easy, but pull this up. Okay, the monitor's also not showing now. Screen capture, let me edit. And then it's going to pull up probably the wrong screen. Screen 2, I've got to go back, forward, there we go. So, obviously there's BJ actual devices. Here's the little containers, I've got these exact ones, funnily enough. And they're just tiny, tiny little solder balls, like as big as these chips. That's kind of the point. The pins on these are the size of the balls. So I'll bring some up next time on stream. You can also get tools like these here, like clamps. I've got all these kind of things where you normally clamp the chip in, because in order to add the balls to this, you can either hand position them, literally grab a tiny ball, place it on, tiny ball, place it on, and do that for every single pin on there, or you can get a metal stencil, they're called BGA stencils. Let me type that in. You can get these, which are just stencils of the right size, which are basically metal stencils, and they have little holes in. I've got, again, all of these. I might have them lying around. I've got all this stuff, but I packed it away because, like I say, I don't typically do BGA that much to keep everything out on the desk. You'd overlay that over the chip and then just literally sprinkle the balls over the top, drag them around, and they fall into the holes and stay in place. And then you'd hot air very lightly. So this is the main key. If you were putting the solder balls on here, you want your hot air, and believe it or not, on 1% airspeed. So absolutely nothing. You want the temperature the same, so 330 to 480, doesn't really matter which, probably 330 is more than enough. And you get your hot air at 1% airspeed, and you go about 2 inches above, and go around very, very slowly like this, because the balls will just blow away otherwise. And then once you see the balls starting to solidify, you leave them, put that back out of the way. Once they start solidifying and tacking down to this board, you go closer with the hot air. So you go really close and then reflow them. Once they've all kind of stuck into place and they look all dry jointed, then you put a little bit of solder on, a little bit of flux on, and then you reflow again with your hot air. But the first thing you want to do is get the balls to effectively melt and stick to the pads before you do anything else. If you want to flux it, the way you flux it is literally, this is way too much, by the way, that is too much flux. So you put the flux on, and then you just drag with, say, your melamine sponge, and wipe every single bit of excess flux off that you can see. That's the perfect amount of flux. So literally, well, I say perfect, even that might be too much. You want the smallest amount of flux going on, because the problem with the flux is it will bubble when you heat it up, and the bubbles move the balls. So you want flux for one that doesn't bubble much. And funnily enough, this flux I'm using at the minute, this HTTF, this doesn't really bubble at all, so this is probably a really good one for BGA. They do sell specific flux for BGA, but that makes a massive difference. So the most important things are, if you're using flux, use an absolute scraping. Sometimes I just put my finger on it and wipe over the flux. Like I literally put a bit of flux on my finger and wipe it on the chip. That's how little you want. And then you put the balls on however you want. You can either hand position them, which on this chip I'd probably hand position them for how small it is, or you get little stencils, put them over, put the balls in. If you're using the stencil, you can get two kinds of stencil, which is again important. You can get one stencil that's designed for solder paste, where you just squidge solder paste through. I wouldn't recommend that. And the other one's designed for solder balls. If you use a stencil that's designed for solder balls, you normally remove the stencil, leave the balls in place and reflow it. If you get one that's designed for solder paste, then you normally leave the metal in, the stencil in position, push your tweezers over either side, and hot air while everything's still in place and the stencil's over the top. If you use it the wrong way around and you use the stencil one for the balls, when you try to lift off that metal stencil, it's going to be stuck to the chip and you'll break the chip. So the hardest bit is people getting the solder balls on, and when they're on, they need to be perfectly level, so when you look down the side and you see the grid, they're all completely even. If they're not even, start again, it's not going to work. They need to all be completely even. So the fact that I don't have the stencils, I'm going to just apply solders to this and show you why this won't work. It'll solder on, but this is not the way you can do it. People might think you can just do this and get a soldering iron, blob some solder in the tip of the iron, and tin these pads like you would anything else. You absolutely can't do this for BGA. It will not work. So I'm just flooding the iron with solder and going over all the pads. And then we'll clean that off. And then what we're left with is just nothing sticking. So you see, you just can't get solder to stick, and even if you could, you're not going to get the solder to ball up, because that's like the BGA balls are reliant on the fact that there's too much solder for the pad and it balls up and makes a bubble around the pad, so that when you put it back on the board, you actually have enough solder to stick to the board. So relying on surface tension alone won't work on BGAs, because the surface tension on these pads isn't enough to make enough solder stick. So you could try use like a single iron like this and you have a bit better luck. So this iron is making little balls on the row, for example, but you can see no matter how much you put on your iron, you're not going to get enough on there. So if we looked at that from the side now, you can see there's still just no amount of pads on there. So let me just see, I think I might even have, so I can show you the pointing it back down, I might have some of these spare in my components tub, so I can actually show you what they should look like when you reball it. MCUs, no, then NeoPixels, not them. Yeah, so here's an example of one I've reballed. I mean, it's not the right chip, but here's an example of a Dreamcast. So this is when I said I worked on the Sega Naomi's. This is a Sega GPU, in essence, that I've taken off, and I've actually reballed this. So if you look down the side of this, look how even them balls are. So see how they all line up and they're all perfectly level all around, and and they're all in line, that is what you have to have. That kind of perfect alignment and perfect same height solder balls all the way down. You have to have that. If you can't see straight down and straight through, and that they're all in line and the same thickness, then you don't want to put it back on. So that's what you're aiming at getting, basically, this perfect height. And you have to use different size balls as well as the other thing, because every pitch and every size pad on a BGA is different. So you really have to know the specs of the thing that you're working on, the size of the pads that you've got. So it's not something that, you know, if you're not used to soldering, I would not start with that, basically. There's a lot of things you have to think about and consider when you're doing it. I'm just seeing if I've got any of these FPGAs spare. I thought I did, but maybe I don't. There we go. Yes, so I've got a bag full of them. So I can show you resoldering this on, how to now, you know, solder it back down, which is very easy. There's not that much skill involved in. Oh, it's gone out of focus. Not much skill in soldering it back down, but I can still show you. So they can go up there. Alright, so here is the bag of replacements. So this is a brand new one. This is straight from factory, but this is how you're meant to get them looking. Where's the camera? There we go. Focus down. Dirty desk. Clean that in a minute. Right, so flip them over. You can see that's the one we haven't reballed, obviously properly, because we don't have the stencil or the balls on us. And this one, if we zoom in even closer, this is the factory fresh one. So see, if we tilt it to the side, now you see all them balls. So they're obviously a lot smaller than the Dreamcast one, but this even height all the way down and all the way around in rows, this is what you have to get. If the chip doesn't look like this, with exact size solder balls, then it won't work. So the entire key to BGA work really is getting these balls on and just the right height, and you can see how small they are. The other thing as well, really, if you have this and you're going to now solder it onto this board, you've got one shot for the most part. Yeah, they come pre-balled, so you can have a go at this, but soldering them down is easy, but it's still not. I said there's no skill in it, but there is still a little bit of skill. First, make sure your dot is aligned with your dot, and you have to have these as aligned. In one way you have to have them really aligned, and in others you don't. So that's why I've put like a black border around here, so you can see where to align the chip. So you want to, you know, align the chip as best as possible, like really, really accurately. Because the idea is, see the pitch between these balls? This gap, if you're out by the width of this ball in general, so that little width, if you're out by that much, then what can happen is two balls can join. So if one ball's sitting here, the worst case, it can actually snap to the wrong pad. So if you've got it resting, say, here, and you think that's aligned enough, that isn't aligned enough. What can happen then is this will nudge over when it warms up and snap over here, one ball out, and it will happen. The other thing is, it might look like it's fine, and then all of a sudden it pulls in slightly, but what you'll end up is with two of the balls, one reflowed onto here and wet this pad, the other reflowed onto here and wet the pad, but when they both slid over into position, you can have it where the solder from this pad joins with the ball that was halfway over here. So alignment is crucial. You want to really align this accurately. So we'll do that. Flux on here again, same idea. Very, very little flux. So that is too much. Get your finger, if you don't mind contaminating your finger with flux, spread it round like that. That's enough. More than enough. Do not overflux it, because again, the bubbles inside the flux or bubble nudge these balls out the way and screw it up. So tiny amounts of flux. Ideally you want BGA flux or none. The key, if it's not BGA flux, is you don't want to see the flux bubbling, basically. Align this chip perfectly or as accurately as possible, like so. That's now, the twist isn't as important as the left, right, up and down alignment, but you could nudge that slightly. As silly as it sounds, I know I'm saying you want it as aligned as possible. You also do want some kind of slight misalignment, like see, it's closer to the top here than it is over there. The reason for that is when we hot air this down, I want to see that slight movement into position so I know when it's bound to the board. So with that in position, hot air again, different technique. You want to hot air this down, but with low airspeed and from higher up to start with. You don't want to blow this chip around. So I'm going to get the hot air, and I'm going to go on still 330, but I'm going to turn this down to 50% airspeed. And if I go to the side, maybe zoom in a bit so you can see, and I want to be about here, so it's about 2 fingers above the board basically. That's where I'm going to be at. And then I can zoom, I'll zoom back in on this because we want to see this nice and close. Oh, that is zoomed in. Zoom in more. There we go. So what we're going to look for is, I'm going to try keep as still as possible so you're looking at the actual chip and nothing else. I'm about 1.5 inches above the board. You don't need to move the hot air too much at this stage. And what we're looking for is this chip should twist slightly into position, basically. So where it's higher at the top left, we want to see that nudge and almost pull in. And as soon as it nudges into position, it isn't ready. What that's done is then bound the chip to the board. It's like the balls have melted and they've attached to the board. As soon as they attach to the board pulls away the heat from the chip and everything cools back down, and you're then into the second stage of the reflow, which is warming it back up enough to then do a full reflow. So we just wait until we see this moving. And if you've aligned it too perfect, you won't see the movement at all. So you'll that's why you want that little bit of misalignment. And then see it there? See how marginally it started to move? So that's some of the balls melting. So now the left and the right are almost even. So it wasn't super obvious. But see now the left and the right, that top black line is perfectly level all the way across. That's how we know it's just moved into position. So very subtle. And now you can go closer with the air, and you can up your airspeed now to 80%. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to see the chip move. So I'm actually going to go 90% airspeed. Don't be tempted to put flux on. You've got enough under there for now. And I want to go around the chip, and I want to try and see the chip dance. And that's how you know it's soldered in. And it's hard to see at this angle because the hot air's in the way, but if I try and move it out of the way, so you get to see, I should be able to get this to dance for you, even if it's just so you can see the idea. And you don't always get that, especially on BGAs, because they don't necessarily always want to pull. Yeah, and I don't think we're going to get the dance on this. It's too small of a chip to see. Because going around like this, basically, you would see that chip slightly moving with your hot air. You get it on some chips, you don't on others. And I might be able to, just to force it, I can put some flux on this. You wouldn't do this when you're reflowing, you know, for real, because it'll mess it up. The flux will get underneath and it will mess the joint. So don't do this on the real one. I'm just going to do it to try and show you if I can get it to do a dance. But also, never push down, never ever push down on the top of these. You'll flatten the balls. Some people nudge from the side to get a feel for if it's soldered. So what you can do, if you're not seeing the dance, let me put a tiny bit of flux on. And like I say, don't generally do this at all when you're doing BJ work. Don't re-add flux. I just want to do this because I want to see if I can get it moving for you, just so you know what it would look like. So actually, let's leave that bounce up in the air. Let's see if I can get this to dance now. I'm probably going to have to push this chip down because the mat's bubbling up. Focus back down on the mat. Right, there we go. So I'll have to hold the mat in position. And let's see if we can get this to kind of do a little dance. And you can see the problem with this flux now. See how it's going under the chip and bubbling? That'll be doing more bad than good under that chip. That'll be bubbling like this now and nudging all them solder balls everywhere. That's why you don't have flux. And I don't think we can get this. This is just too solid down, so you're not going to see that dancing, unfortunately. But one of the other things that people will do, say they think, is this soldered? Let go of that and focus up because the mat's bubbling. The other thing you can do, if you're very, very careful, is slightly nudge the chip very gently, like this, to see if it moves. But the problem with that is, if you're not used to that technique, you can nudge the chip too far and ruin it all as well. So if we were to gently nudge, see how that moves? So you know that's soldered in. But if I move, see that last move there? That was probably too much movement. So you'd probably find this might be soldered well, but that amount of movement I did there, even though it was small, was possibly even too much, and you've got joined balls under there. So you tend to practice on boards that start with, well, you've got to really start with the BJ that you want to solder. But you'd power the board up and make sure everything works, so you know you've done a good job. Once you have and you get used to you know it working, you can then practice on things like nudging. But you can see how it's perfectly aligned. That's your main key. You're relying on the fact that it wasn't quite perfectly aligned at the top and then it moved into position, and then you give it plenty enough time after that it will have soldered. But never push down, that will screw it up. Never put the flux on after like I just did and you saw the bubbling, because that will more than likely screw it up. And if you want to nudge, you have to be insanely careful to just very, very gently nudge it. You want to see the smallest movement possible to know it's moving. But then if we look down, you can see normally underneath. That is really hot. You can see if we look down, there's the balls. So I know that's on fine because you can see the balls there, all in line, non-adjoined. So you can't see right the way through. Sometimes you can. But if I check all four sides, that side we can just about see with the camera. I'll pull focus down to there. You can see there fine. Go to this side. Yep, they're fine. And you get used to knowing what the, you know, how they look when they're working, basically. But that's the general idea of BGA. Obviously, I haven't shown you the full amount there, and there's a lot to go through. There's a hell of a lot of techniques and things, but that's the general overview. Again, if you probably want to learn more about that, we can do that on the sub-only streams if you really wanted to learn some BGA. But I'm by far not a master at BGA. I've done enough. I can do what I need to do, but I'd recommend if you're doing anything regular on the BGA side, just get a BGA rework station. It really isn't worth. I learned to do it without machines, and I honestly think if I was doing it professionally just for consistency and reliability, I'd just use a BGA rework station. I wouldn't go and manually do it. Yeah, so I think that one is it. I'm probably going to have to get orders ready now. So hopefully, if this camera stays stable and works for us, I'll be doing the sub-only stream at 4 PM today, UK time. So for all the subs that want to join in there, you can. If you're not a member on YouTube or subbed on Twitch, you can join now if you want. You'll be invited then. If you link your Discord with your YouTube or Twitch username, you'll get invited to something called Elite Members on the Discord channel. That's where we plan and talk about the sub-only lives. And we'll go through... I don't even know what we're going through yet. I'll probably... well, it's mainly to check the stream works, have a chat with all the subs, and we'll plan out what we're going to do, which is definitely, I think, to make circuit boards. People clearly have a big interest in making the circuit boards. So whether we just get going straight away on the stream with that, or whether we want to take a look at the setup and equipment, it's really just going to be an open discussion and spend time with you guys that are obviously supporting the channel. And you've got me then for a few hours to do whatever we want, but I think we'll probably end up making circuit boards probably straight away. And again, we can open source them, or we can keep them closed source just for subs if you want. So, you know, we could make it so the stuff we're making on the live streams nobody else can even get access to. it might be a good idea. So in one way, it's like, yeah, we have a design that we're teaching people to do, but it's also closed off just to the subs as well. I think we'll probably do that, and we'll have like a shared folder or a shared drive somewhere on maybe GitHub to show that off, basically. And yeah, the other thing I kind of briefed over and didn't really confirm is these are now out, released and shipping today. So if you've ordered these already, they're shipping today. We just built one up here. Worked perfect first time. Did realise though this we probably want to hand solder basically. So that's all good. And yeah, I'm going to crack on with the day's work now. Thanks everybody for joining in. And I will see you tomorrow at least. I'll see the subs later on and I'll see everybody else tomorrow. Oh yeah, Rusty's well, Rusty was passed out this morning. I come down at like 3 in the morning. So Rusty will be where is he? Oh, I've had a picture as well of the missus. Let me see if it's Rusty or not. Oh no, it's the missus losing weight. Where's my picture of Rusty this morning? There's Rusty at like 4 in the morning, pitch black, passed out. Well, 3:30 I think it was. So I presume he's awake now. I haven't left this room yet. So I'll go and find out. Give him some grub if not. And maybe another coffee. It's got to be another coffee. I've got, by the way, that 250 gram bag of House. I've got like probably 2 drinks left. I've had 3 this morning already. Right, see you guys later and tomorrow.